today to introduce a speaker who I had just met about 2 minutes ago. I had not met Mr. Malik earlier. Mr. Sadanand Malik, please come. So today's lecture is much awaited. I say this from the questions that have been coming up from time to time, because a lot of us want to know about the Comunidade system, a system so unique to Goa, and a system which took care of the needs of the village. Now, Mr. Malik is a Gaunkari and former president of the Comunidade of Comunidade. He is a self-studied expert, we say that title, self-studied expert in Comunidade law, having devoted almost 20 years to understand the system. He was president of the Comunidade some years ago, and he took the trouble to understand the system. His biodata, which I had requested for, shows that he is a very diversified personality. He hails from the village of Comunidade in Vishori Taluka. He did his postgraduate studies in the commerce stream and specialized in accounting, banking, etc., which subjects he later taught as a college lecturer, and he is also founder chairman of the Comunidade Urban Cooperative Credit Society, a post which he holds till today. Alongside, he had a great interest in politics. He started out as a Panch member of the Comunidade Village Panchayat and soon went on to become MLA from Pale, which is now Sankli Assembly constituency. Now he is not an MLA at present. During his stint in the assembly, he was also a cabinet minister and chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. During that period, he presented some private member bills. You will remember, I think, what are government bills and private member bills from the lecture that Advocate Carlos gave. So, private member bills, namely Goa Groundwater Regulation Bill and the Goa Notified Area Development Authority Bill. And he was a member, being learned, being knowledgeable in things, he was a member of several select committees. These are committees which study bills which come out and then present them to the House. But the reason why Goa Foundation invited Mr. Malik to speak to us today is because Mr. Sadanand Malik has been one of the strongest political voices against government interference in the Code of Comunidades. He maintains that the Comunidade is a self-regulating, self-sustaining system. And he also says now that if people want to understand this issue of land sales going on at present, where parcels of land are being sold out, including the misuse of the Comunidade lands, then we need to look carefully at the original design of the Comunidade system, or Gaunkari as it was called. He has also opposed grant of mining leases on Comunidade lands because they are not revenue lands and mining leases should not be given on those lands. So we will have a lot of questions to ask him, apart from understanding what the Comunidade system is about, whether it can be restored, whether there is anything can be done, or is it all gone, or can some things be salvaged. These are all questions which I am sure Mr. Malik will answer to you as you listen carefully to his lecture. Mr. Malik, on behalf of the audience present here today, I welcome you and invite you to speak.
Good evening, all of you. I thought perhaps I will be addressing the younger generation, but I am very happy that the senior generation, mature audience is before me, and you have experienced a lot of things in Goa, which equally I have done, and I will be sharing my views rather than imparting the information that I will be imparting the information that I have. I am not a legal luminary as you are introduced. I am only a teacher by profession earlier, and to some period a politician, but always a social worker. And I continue to look at the happenings in the government and in the state, although not reacting very often, but reacting whenever I feel it is very essential. Now, the topic that is informed to me is the Code of Comunidades and its implications for land issues, including Goa Land Revenue Code. 2 days back, Ms. Siddhali gave me this topic, and this is the title. And I said, she asked me whether I would like to make a change in the heading. I said nothing was not required, I will manage it. But what I feel, I will just reverse the title. Instead of saying Code of Comunidades and implications for land issues, including Goa Land Revenue Code, I will rather put it Land Revenue Code and implications for land issue, including the Code of Comunidades. I am telling the reason why. See, the Code of Comunidades is a very ancient law, original law. Gaunkari law is the original law, and this Land Revenue Code is the latest one. And normally what we see is, supposing some new event takes place, new situation arises, what is the implication? A new policy comes, new law comes, what is the implication of that on the old one, existing one? So rather than going for the implication of Code of Comunidades on land issues and land revenue code, so implications of Code of Comunidades not on land revenue code, I want to put it as implications of land revenue code on the Comunidade. Because that is the crux of the problem in my opinion. The land revenue code is a major damage that is done to us is by the land revenue code in my opinion. So therefore, as you all are social workers and more interested in public interest litigation and the social activities, I feel it is very necessary to understand the fundamentals of law first, the features of that law. So what I will discuss, what this Code of Comunidades and Comunidades are, then what is the land revenue code, how the reciprocal implications are there, and then is there any role for the Constitution in this process, Constitution of India. By the way, today is the 75th Constitutional Day that we are observing. And then I was told to make a specific some references about the mining, so that I will try to make it. Now the first and the foremost is I will take up the Code of Comunidades or the Comunidades. What are Comunidades? So many times when the person from the outside Goa comes and he sees that everywhere Comunidades word is appearing, what are these Comunidades? So simple words meaning can be given. Goan villages are called Comunidade. Now you may say that there are no Comunidades in all the villages. So how we say the Goan villages are called Comunidade? There were almost for all the villages in Goa, there were Comunidade. But subsequently, for the historical reasons, they were reduced. Some say there were 700, some say there were 500. Some say 437, and now what we are having it 226. As a annexure, the first schedule to the Code of Comunidades gives us the information that there are 226 Comunidades in Goa. Now, why they lost? Some of the Comunidades were dissolved by making them makaso to some desais, some ranis, by Samantawadikars, sometimes by Adil Shah. Then, thereafter, the Portuguese government also dissolved some of the Comunidades and gave it in the same fashion to some bidders. And that is how the charge of that now that's why we find in many Comunidades, this side pertinent side went to this room, that side went to Ranis and Desais. Okay, this is how it went on, and therefore now we are ready to, after a great fight with the because we these 226 Comunidades which are remaining, they have fulfilled all the challenges and countered all the challenges they had from the Portuguese region, paying them from time to time whatever that is to be paid, and that is how they survived. Many of them were resolved by the Portuguese because they were not paying the contractor, they were not in a position to pay even the contractual money. So now the question is, what are these the Comunidades? So Comunidades are, if we look at the article 1 of our Code of Comunidades, they said that Comunidades or Gaunkaris are in existence. That is how they start, in existence. So that means Comunidades are the Gaunkaris. It's very clear. Now what are these Gaunkaris? Gaunkari is a form of governance which is managed by the Gaunkars. Now who are the Gaunkars? Gaunkars are the founders of the village, the first settlers, who brought that village under the settlement and the cultivation. They had their own boundaries. Normally in Goa we are having water bodies everywhere on other side. Sometimes we have a hill or a plateau or hillock. So wherever the boundaries were there, most of the time you will find the boundaries of the village are the boundaries of the natural boundaries. And on the hillside there was they used to adjust it. If the two villages are connecting villages and in between the hillock is there, they were not having the boundary as a common boundary for both the villages. If this side is a village, this side is a village there, this part was kept by them, open. So that is, you can say, now a no man's land for the international boundaries. They are not connecting to one another. So that is why there were no disputes. You will never observe any dispute. We have never observed any dispute of the boundary for the Comunidades villages. That's the reason behind it. Because wherever river is water body is there, it is clear. Wherever this lodge is there, they were not touching one another. They were keeping a gap. And I found that in this particular survey that was carried out in 1972, they have connected. It is not kept as it is. And this middle portion which was earlier left was called as marsh, and that part was declared even earlier by the Portuguese survey as the property of the government, Portuguese. This middle part, because there is no one's land. This village was not claiming it, that village was not claiming it, but they had kept that land because so that wild animals or that should not be disturbed, and all their rituals they were doing here and here. That's why there was no confrontation was there. So that is, so they were very astute. Our ancient people were very practical, and that is how they managed it. Now this government of the Gaunkars, now there will be question as to why only the Gaunkars? Because they were the first settlers. It is they who are brought up, and all the infrastructure that is done for the village is done by them, none else. Later on, when seeing them that this is a good place to live in, the other people came so that they could get some jobs. They were also accommodated there. They were also given the land for the purpose of cultivation. They were also allowed to be in the service of the temples normally, because for the temples you required a lot of servicemen. So all of them were accommodated. They were also given the land for that purpose, so that they can discharge their duties without charging them anything. That is called as nomos or nomoship. And this is how the land which was collectively held by the Gaunkars, they themselves make some rules for themselves. On the basis of those rules which are called as the mandoli, they administered the village, okay, and if necessary, they were the one who were punishing the culprits and giving the judgments. So you find that what we find in the today's our constitution, the three wings, legislation, execution and judiciary, all these three wings were embodied within that particular Gaunkari, and therefore they were referred as ancient time village republics. They were referred as village republics. I have in my hand the extracts taken up from the Goan village comments by Professor Olivino Gomes. He has in one paragraph recorded about, we do not know, some say 5,000 years old, some say 2,000 years old, Comunidades are there. But the written record, we are getting it from Kadamba King Jaikesi, and I am reading that extracts. Possibly the first recorded mention of the Gaunkars of the Goan village communes wishing to pay tribute to a king in return for the latter's help in resisting the Muslim invasion and protect their own interests appears in the Farman, which is called the order, of April 1054. So, at least in 1054, it is clear that Gaunkaris were in existence, and it says the Kadamba King Jaikesi. An inference can also be drawn from that Farman about the Council of Commune Gaunkars having the power and the prerogative to dispense justice, imposing its punishment in the form of punitive moryada, in the exercise of magisterial, administrative and judicial authority vested in it under the law of the land as the supreme decision-making body of the village council. So when it is supreme decision body making of the village council, that means there is no one above them. And when this was a Farman issued because some Muslim ruler were trying to loot the traders here in this area and their ships. And when he got that information, he came to protect them, and they fled away. And then these Gaunkars from that locality and the traders, they went to him saying that we wish to pay you the tribute because you have protected us. Before that they were not paying. So, and they said, I do not want anything. He says, Pushirak, that's how the word, we find many times the Pushirak is there. It came from there. We are giving it voluntarily because most of that time Hindu dominance was there. They said that, see, the Vedas and the Manusmritis say that the protector, the king, should be given 1/6 of the share of the produce. So we are offering you 1/6 of that because it is your right, because you have protected us. And so to tell you that this is the written record that is available to us, saying that at least the Comunidades were there, the Gaunkars were there from the year 1054. And please remember, the British dynasty, which ruled almost half of the world and even India for 150 years, the founder of that dynasty, the foundation of that dynasty was made by the Emperor Norbert in 1066 AD. That means after this Farman, after that, 14 years after that, he has formed a dynasty which subsequently ruled almost half of the world. Now, when Portuguese came down to Goa in 1510, of course they were invited to come down because Adil Shah was trying to exploit the farmers and the Gaunkars, increasing the tributes to be paid to him. But one thing which I would like to mention, no king had claimed at any point of time a right over the land. Even the Manusmritis and the Puranas all that say he has a right to take the produce 1/6. He doesn't have a right on the land. The right on the land is of those farmers and the cultivators and the producers and the Gaunkars. That is who has brought that village into existence. That is their right, not of the king. So this is in the marked difference that what we find today when every land vests in the government, and it was what we have borrowed is from the British legacy. This is the British legacy. Now when in 1510 Portuguese came down to Goa, we all know that there was a charter, the Forel of 1526. Afonso Mexia, Treaty of Afonso Mexia, which is commonly referred to, September 1526. That treaty, which was issued by King John III, the charter was granted, and the heading of that charter is Charter of Usages and Customs. I am translating in English. Charter of Usages and Customs of the Gaunkars and the farmers of this island of Goa, because it was only this one at that time, and other annex to it. And there are 49 clauses in that. And this charter is in reference to the protection that was promised by Afonso Albuquerque and the king in 1510, when they invited to oust Adil Shah. At that time, this agreement was reached between them that this is our land, these are our customs and practices, this is we have to protect us, and we shall be offering you 1/6 of whatever that is the produce. That was the agreement. And in reference to that argument, this charter came up in 1526. Please remember, Portuguese arrived in 1510. The charter is of 1526. Why so much period went? There was this Afonso Mexia was a commissioner for revenue to the Portuguese, highest officer in Goa. He was asked to study whatever these farmers and the Gaunkars are telling is correct or not. You corroborate this information from the nearby states. And he took the time to study everything. And after studying that, he came to that this is a real fact what is told to them, and then he wrote down all that his findings. And after that, this charter was issued, which had 49 clauses, and which mainly is regarding that he is taking up the responsibility of protecting the land, the customs, the usages, practices of the Gaunkar, and against the payment of certain tribute. And there are other the inheritance cannot be transferred, all that is there in those 49. Now, this Commissioner of Revenue Mexia reports, Gaunkars collectively held judicial and political power both the village level and General Assembly. General Assembly is the Comunidade, which was not at Taluka level. So, that Afonso Mexia said it then in his report, after which that charter came. In that report he mentions that Gaunkars collectively held judicial and political power at both village level and Comunidade. Then there was the issue of dissolving when Portuguese became more stable here. They started a lot of things imposing on the. Now also what we find here after the liberation is so many things are coming to and down on us, which are sometimes against us. This same thing was done by the Portuguese also at that time. And in 1649, they declared that all the land vested in the Portuguese government. In 1649. And when they said it, then of course it was not acceptable to the Governor General here subsequently, because he said that this policy will lead to disaster in Goa, and it happened. And he wrote to the king saying that I do not feel whether to weep, because the farmers have started to stop producing the food. They are producing only that is required for them. So our soldiers are not getting the food. And many things that he mentioned, and we should not be so harsh to them. And subsequently, then reference came, it subsided. Even this Portuguese government asked the Gaunkars to contribute the money for defense. Some of the, to my knowledge, some of the forts are constructed by the Comunidade. Aldona Fort is mainly constructed by the Comunidade of this area. So, like that, more pressure was felt on the Comunidade, and they went out of the way to help the government, and subsequently got indebted. They had to borrow from the Saukars and the money lenders and put it up somehow, pay the amount to the Portuguese government, obey their orders, whatever they are telling. And that led to issue of the ACOS. That is the Aksam, what we say, which is a translated version now as a share. Okay, it came up from that ACOS, and this normally mainly we find in the old conquest. For my Comunidade and the Talika of the Petroleum Comunidade, we don't have any shareholders. It's for that reason. because this was that time where there were more pressure. There were on one side the Marathas were there, from the other side the Ali Shah Muslim rulers were there. So they had to strengthen the defense force, and that is why the burden came on the Comunidade, and they were indebted. And when they were indebted, they had to borrow by giving a document, I owe you this amount. That's only we refer. And now we say it's a promissory note, negotiable instrument. Now, when this amount was borrowed and the Comunidade was indebted for a long time, because they couldn't pay it with whatever the income that they are getting, then they only came with the suggestion to divide that particular debt into the small part share of maybe ₹20, and that is how it came to shares. But always remember that each and every Comunidade is a distinct, independent. They have their own independent laws, because the Article 1 itself says that they are governed by this code shall be governed by, Comunidade shall be governed by this code, and more so by their private laws. And in the absence of private laws and this provision, the general laws should be applied. So that means they also have the same code is providing for the private law. And private law of the old conquest is defined by them about the shares and all that, distribution of the profit zone. But for the new conquest, that is not decided. So we have a freedom there. We can interpret, as the assembly is interpreting what is that contempt and the privileges. So we can, the new conquest Comunidade say, the code says that we can follow our private right. This is our private law. And what is the private law? They have said the law that existed before 50 years before 1904. 50 years before 1904. That means almost 1856. And the reason for that, what I feel, is by 1856, the Portuguese government had nominated escrivãos for all the Comunidade. Because although the escrivãos were paid by the Comunidade, the appointments were done by the government, and that appointment was complete by 1856. That is why they say that private law is that which was followed before 1856. Now I have a research paper of Paul S. L. Ward and Michelle F. Lewis. It is a ethno-history, copyrights of the American Society of Ethno-History. They had carried a very nice research, and display. I got extracts of this. Maxia reports that the Comunidade function and maintain public works projects associated with agriculture. The Gaunkars collectively held judicial and political powers at both village level and the Kamrajara. Then they say the issue came up in 1830 to 1870 about dissolving, abolishing the Comunidade. Portuguese government we are discussing, and that time the decision was objected by the two eminent personalities who were the commissioners also for the revenue and the secretary to the Governor General, the highest position that they had. They opposed it. One was Puna Rivera and second was Xavier. And they said that they both blamed any shortcoming of the Comunidade on Portuguese colonial politics and agreed that the Gaunkars were autonomous landholders paying contractual tax to Portuguese state rather than the renters paying the rent to the land owned by the Portuguese state. This is one. Xavier went to the extent of saying that the land of the Comunidade was held perpetually on payment of furrow and the Portuguese state had no domain over the Comunidade land, which is very important. This is a law of eminent domain. If the eminent domain is there, your power cannot work. Madam is better position to tell us about that eminent domain. So, unless the eminent domain is with the government cannot move ahead. But this dominant, he says that your secretary to the Governor General, Portuguese state had no domain over the Comunidade land. Then They further agreed that argued that the Comunidades, he argued, were even more perfect than the European municipalities, and because they administered their own fiscal, judicial, and electoral matters, he admired the Comunidades for remaining autonomous under the Portuguese and for undertaking their own public works, auctions, disbursement, surplus, and revenue collection. The former, he argued, retained the privileges and prerogatives of the Gaunkars as owner and not renters of the land, and therefore the village communities in Goa are not lessee of the Portuguese state, nor did the state hold title to the land. So, it made it very clear that state doesn't hold any title to the land. I am referring to all this because I will be coming up to the land revenue code, and there we require this. Purna Rivera and Xavier, whose arguments for retaining the Comunidade finally prevailed, saw the Gaunkars as sovereign owners of the land, regarded the Comunidade as superior European forms of the community. They rejected the very ideology that justified the imperialist policy of British India and held up the Comunidade as uncorrupted, ideal form of social organization. The modern Portuguese state was seen by Xavier and Purna Rivera as the destroyer of this ancient, idyllic village republic. I think that explains to you the position, the status that the Comunidade had in the earlier times, which makes it very clear that the Comunidade does not hold the land for the state. They are independent and autonomous. Then let us come across what is the subsequent development after that. We come across Goa Gazette. Now this is what this government has published in the Gazette, which I am referring. And this is what was the history. Okay. Now this is what the Goa government has published on 21st of July 2016. Goa had a history of numerous rulers who ruled from the 3rd century onwards up to 1961. The rulers included Bhojas, Mauryas, Yadavas, Brahmanids, Marathas, Portuguese. In 1961, Goa was liberated from Portuguese rule by the 12th Amendment Act 1962 to the Constitution of Goa. Along with Daman and Diu, became part of Indian region with numerous rulers changing Goa. The local self-government institution did not undergo any major changes. So many rulers were there, but the local government did not change. Goa has a unique history of institution of local self-government dating back to ancient times. Descendants of the ancient settlers of the village called Gaunkars organized themselves into Comunidades or communities which function as an autonomous unit of village administration. Our Goa government is saying this, which functions as an autonomous unit of village administration. The government was vested in the assembly of the government was vested in the assembly of the elders of each Wangod. Members of the Comunidade were Joneros, Akshakars, Gaunkars. The primary activity of the Comunidade was reaching out their community, commonly held agricultural land, orchard, ponds through auction. The income was utilized to fund common services for the village like those of the priests, barbers, construction of maintenance of market halls, etc. This village governance was allowed to exist alongside the Portuguese administrative machinery. So on one side, in villages, the Comunidades were functioning at the headquarters level. It was the functioning of the Portuguese government. Goa has a population of 4.5 lakhs. Goa had a history of the decentralized form of local government. That means they agreed that the Comunidades were the local government. Where do we stand at the moment? Is a question to be asked to yourself. Now, when they all know this, still what they are doing, actions, we have to monitor them. Now, Portuguese, when we got this now Code of 1961, okay, diploma number 2070, it was preceded by 1933 Code of Comunidade, diploma number 651. Before that, 1904 approved by the Portaria of number 300 Portaria order 315. And prior to that, there were only regimentos in 1847. and 1735. So 1735, 1847 were regimentos, then came the Code of Comunidades. But interesting thing to remember, in all this Code of Comunidades of 1904 or 1933 or 1961, they were preceded by the appointment of a commission, and it was a commission that was hearing the Gaunkars before finalizing the code. Now, when the amendments are done to the Comunidade code, no one is taken into consideration, no Gaunkars are taken into consideration, or no commission. A commission was not at all appointed. Recently it was held. I think somewhere in 99 also it was held, but not for the purpose of seeing these amendments or approving the amendments. There was no proposal. It was just a meeting like. Actually, it is a very big exercise that after every 5 years, the law provides, Code of Conduct provides, after every 5 years you have to meet in the month of January, all the Gaunkars. The delegates should be selected in November. This should be prepared in December. And then accordingly the convention should be held so that they can discuss what is required for them. Even this code of 1961, when in 1558 the process was held of the commission was appointed, it was a 2 days session. Everything was discussed. The draft was approved by the Gaunkars, submitted to the governor. Governor, as per the Article 151 of the Portuguese Constitution, required the approval of the Legislative Council, because there was a Legislative Council of 18 members and 5 years the government of 23 members, 5 years from the government officers, government, and 18 were elected in Goa. That council has to approve that, not prepare it, approve this draft which is sent by the governor to them, and then only it could be published in the Gazette. That is how it was published in the Gazette, and from 15th of April 1961, this particular Code of Comunidade came into force, that is diploma number 2070. So, that was not an exercise of the Legislative Council. Legislative Council has only approved that particular code. And now, in our democratic rule, the Gaunkars are not at all taken into consideration opinion for making changes in the code. It is very interesting to note the preamble of that code says that the Comunidades are the juridical institution, that is mentioned in that code, in the preamble. Second thing that is mentioned, that they are the perfect owner of their properties, perfect owner, actual owner of the property, and there is nothing like the domino and that is domino possession and user possession and one who is giving the final order. This concept, possession and the user, this concept is not applicable to them. That is also what they have stated, and they had given the word of caution in the preamble saying that we have for last so many years, hundreds of years we are here managing these affairs of the Comunidade, seeing these affairs of the Comunidade, and we feel that this is exclusive, in our opinion, this is the exclusive one and should not be touched. There can be far-reaching implications and disastrous effects of changing the provisions of this code. So it is to be done when it is very, very essential, otherwise it should not be touched. That is the word of caution that they have mentioned in the preamble of the code, and we here for every session coming up with the amendments to the Code of Comunidades. So see what are we doing. And as far as another feature of this code is that they have given, as I have just told you, that they have given the private, Comunidades are governed by the private law. This is a codification. What we are having, all the provisions which are in existence are codified, compiled into a code. And there may be, which are all uniform for several Comunidades, they are codified. But yet there can be some practices which are not followed by the other Comunidades. So they are free to practice their own private laws, which they used to follow 50 years before 1904. That means total autonomy, in fact, was given as far as the Gaunkari are concerned. One important, we know that in Comunidade there are Gaunkars or generals and the shareholders of Gaunkari. We all know that they are taking a zone for the profit surplus that is made. I would like to come across, I would like to read to your notice one of the recent judgment, Madam, on 26 July 24 on the public interest litigation. Not public interest litigation, it is a writ petition 1004-17-1177. This is of Mafsa Comunidade only about the right to information, where we were discussing with me that right to information is not available for the Comunidades are not bound under right to information. I'm just reading one paragraph with regards to Article 5, which government is vehemently saying that we have all the powers because we Comunidades are under the administrative tutelage of the government, and they consider the administrative tutelage as administrative control, which has been explained to us by this particular judgment. Article 5 of the code is a judgment copy. Article 5 of the code stipulates that the Comunidades shall be under the administrative tutelage of the state in terms of the established in this code, and its immovable properties may be granted on equitatis and alienated in the manner provided in the code. Before proceeding further, we note that judgment says, we note that the definition of tutelage in Black's Law Dictionary is the act of protecting or guiding or guardianship. What is tutelage? The act of protecting, guiding and guardianship. So not a control. You have to protect, guide and act like a guardian, because they are the minors. A minor is to be taken care of by the guardian. So you take care of that. And further it said in the second this one, the state being under the care and management of an international organization such as League of Nations or United Nations. This term applies, for example, to the status of a people who do not yet benefit from fully operational government of their own, such as such people displaced by war and living in certain territory that will in future be given autonomy. Please remember that there was a United Nations Charter in 1955 which declared so many colonies should be converted into a self-governing territories. So which are those non-self-governing territories? And in the list of that, there was a Goa territory. Non-self-governing territories. And the Indian government insisted that in 1955 at the United Nations to include the name of Goa there as a non-self-governing territory, which should be made a self-governing territory. And this Code of Comunidades came after that. I said the commission is appointed in 1958, isn't it? So 55 there was a United Nations Charter to have list of the non-self-governing territories. In 58 the commission was appointed, wherein they, you can't hear? So wherein in 1958 after appointing the commission, probably the Portuguese felt that now there is a need of giving them some autonomy, because their name is coming as a non-self-governing territory, and therefore whatever that was promised in 1510 through the Charter 1526, now that has to be restored to them. Probably because of that, and since Goa was to be made a self-governing territory, this particular Article 5 to provide administrative tutelage for the government was incorporated there, so that they learn to manage themselves and then subsequently they can be got liberated. That may be the thing, but it is very important in my opinion, saying that the act of protecting, guiding and guardianship, that means does not vest with the control to the Comunidade as it is being done, and the government and the legislators are interpreting this as right of administrative tutelage is the right of administrative control, which is not so. So that has to be, now this is a recent judgment and someone has to take up with how you are making the amendments when you are not supposed to do it because the land doesn't rest in them. Another article which I am just mentioning is Article 12. We say no, the community properties cannot be eliminated, we say, except in the law. If you look at the Article 12, we find that if any person is taking a loan or a debt on the land, on a plot which is given to him, the right on that plot does not vest with the person granting the loan. He has a right, if the loan is debt is not paid, the person who has given is not having a right on the land, he has a right on the produce. So he has to take the produce and recover his debt, which means the land cannot be separated from the Gaunkari or the Gaunkari. Then we see that there are administrative boards which was changed by Miskita in 1997, Dr. Miskita as a revenue minister. Earlier there was a system that president was nominated by the government, attorney was of the Gaunkari, and treasurer was or the cashier was among the shareholders. Arrangement was done because if the Gaunkari was picking up all the posts and if the shareholders would have given the loans to the Comunidade and they have got the shares, if they are not paid, then so their person should be there as a treasurer. This arrangement was there, but it was changed in 97 and now it is made like a managing committee, president, attorney and the treasurer. This law also includes what are the powers of the administrator, the powers of the governor, then administrative tribunal, and one attention which I want to draw you, because now what we find is when you refer to the Comunidade, all the government officers, they say the Comunidade means that one where the name of the Comunidade is appearing as occupant. That is what is their feeling. Comunidade means where the name of the Comunidade is appearing as occupant, that is a Comunidade. Which I told you is not true, it is the entire village. And the land were given to the villagers by the Comunidade or the Gaunkari collectively. So each and every piece and parcel of the land is of the Comunidade. Some were given, some were kept open for the cattle grazing and all. So those which land which were not given to anyone, they were recorded as the occupants for the Comunidade. Okay, Comunidade is the occupant there. Now register number 1 and 2 or Tom 1 and 2 I am coming to. That Tom 1 gives a list of the property which are directly under the control of the Comunidade office. Okay, Comunidade. And Tom 2, all those properties in the village which belongs to Comunidade but granted permanently to the people in the village. So here what given allocated permanently to the people in the village. So here now it is very clear there are two sets. One directly under Comunidade, there the land revenue code record of rights occupant is recorded, and here the second one where the lands were granted to the public, given to the public, there the names of those people are coming up as occupants. Okay. So the land belongs to the Comunidade, that is what is made clear there in the that article is 222. So that's what is happening for me. When I go on speaking, I miss the timing. 222. listed number 2 is the list of the properties belonging to the Comunidade in possession and figuring in the name of the private individuals. So that means even for the private term, which we say private term 2, 3, those properties are also of the Comunidade properties. And there are other provisions of how the land can be given, whether on the long-term basis, arrendamento basis, that normally we are dealing with. What is important for me to bring to your notice that the innovations are brought up by the government for the Article 371 and 334. For the Article 371 regarding the encroachments of land, which was totally replaced by the government in 1985. And in 72 was also replaced. Because earlier the attorney used to go and demolish the structure if the encroachment is there. Before that. So now you find that up to 1984 there were no illegal constructions in the Comunidade land, isn't it? Have you come across? No. Why? In spite of being after liberation, 20 years are gone from 63 to 84, there were no illegal constructions going on. Because the attorney used to go and demolish it immediately. Because otherwise the Gaunkari are going to question him. Why you are not demolished that? You are the supreme. So you are going and demolishing. Here, what the government did is give the appealing power to the Director of Civil Administration, and Director of Civil Administration means the collector. That is what is also written for the purpose of this section. So directly it came under the minister. When you say collector or a Director of Civil Administration, it came under the minister. So if the attorney goes and takes an objection, issues a notice, he goes in the appeal to the administrator or the collector, and then the matter is kept pending. Seeing that, another one goes and does the same thing. That is how the illegal structures have started coming up from 1984-85 onwards. Another 334 was regarding the allotment of plots. First they said for the freedom fighters, the government employees and all, 400 square meter plots should be given. And now we see that it is going on increasing. Now it has gone to the next. Then came the educational institutions, now the charitable institutions, and every purpose. What is the provision that you are seeing? 334A. Okay. So these are another 2-3 important provisions which I am highlighting. 647 prohibits resentment of the estate. That means the properties of the Comunidade cannot be distributed. 647. 648 says whatever that Comunidades are dissolved, try to revive them. The government is not going to take action on that. Because there are so many Comunidades who are dissolved by the Portuguese opinion that the land rests in them. Okay, so they say now revive it and bring it back to the Comunidade. And that there is a convention should be held in every 5 years under 652. This is as per the schedule we are having now 226. So this proves that the Code of Comunidades is the original law of the Gaunkari of this land, and the power vested solely with the Gaunkari and the Comunidade. Okay. Now I come to the Land Revenue Code. As far as the Land Revenue Code is concerned, what is this collector and Land Revenue Code? See, there was in India, there was East India Company. So when the East India Company was there was a battle of Buxar and battle of Plassey, which they got defeated, Shah Alam, Mughal emperor, and East India Company defeated them, and then they were given as a matter of treaty. Shah Alam II, Mughal emperor, gave in treaty the right, Diwani rights. Diwani rights are referring to the law of collecting the revenue, land revenue. That rights were given to the East India Company. Subsequently, East India Company was taken over by the Crown of England and company was dissolved. So every land that was taken up by East India Company here and subsequently by British went to the Crown of England. But the person that was appointed by East India Company first was called as a collector. It was he who was going to the fields or the houses and collecting the money at that time, the land revenue. That was a collector. And when the area increased, there was necessity was felt to have his assistants and then divide the into village, then sagas, then tehsils, sub-districts and district. This what happened, what we see now is happened after that by the British period. After the liberation of Goa, there was a Tenancy Act came up first, isn't it, in 1964. And for this purpose, the powers were given to the Mamledar to decide about the tenant, who is the tenant, and appealing authority of the collector. But there was neither collector nor the clear-cut information about the record of rights, who is the tenant. So therefore, what they did, they appointed the deputy collectors, the Mamledars, in February 1965, and the collector was appointed in March 1965. So deputy collector appointed in February and collector is appointed in March 1965. See what the misplaced fact they are doing. And there, this provision is actually not in conformity with the Constitution of India, because when the Goa is liberated and under the 12th Amendment Act, it was taken up as a Union Territory of Goa, Comunidade of the Constitution of India. The next thing on the same day that was done was to abolish the proprietorship of villages in Daman and declare that Daman as a district, and all land in the Daman vest in the collector or the central government, and for the central government, collector to look after. The reason, collector is a principal revenue officer of the district for the central government, for the government. Okay, so the land, they abolished the villages which were with the size and took up the land under the government, and the district collector was appointed. Now, similarly, they did in 71. The president, with the president assent, new land was also taken up. Abolition was done for the villages, not villages, for the land, for the proprietors. And when this was done, Goa was not touched. Now see the situation. When a territory is acquired, you should first have the right over the land of that territory. So you did it for Daman, you did it for you. Till today, it was not done for the Goa. So land in Goa did not vest in the central government to pass a land revenue code or to appoint a collector, and therefore the first appointment that was done of the collector was not for the purpose of the land revenue code. It was done for the purpose of tenancy, because tenancy came in 64, and therefore, and I am provided one copy by one of my well-wisher. I was under the impression that the collector's post is not created, but here I am getting one deputation from the government of Maharashtra. S.S. Tinoikar, IAS, is appointed as the collector of Goa with effect from forenoon of 29th March 1965 until further orders by an order in the name of Administrator of Union Territory of Goa, Comunidade. Now, how the Administrator of Goa, Comunidade can appoint a collector when the land does not vest in the central government? Point number one. Point number two, how is that the person is sent from the deputation, who sent it, where is there should be some law in pursuance to which I am issuing this notification. This the Chief Secretary should say. Here it is the order of the Chief Secretary of Goa. How it will get the order to power to get it? The collector. So that is also challengeable. But another place they have written, the area of Goa was constituted into a district in 1965, and the first collector of Goa took charge on March 29, 1965. The deputy collectors, Mamledars, were appointed in February 65. Two deputy collectors for division of district of North Division and South Division. And they further say, in the initial stages, the collectors and Mamledars had a power to perform the duties of the Goa Comunidade Agricultural Tenancy Act 1964, which came into force from February 8, 1965. So, for the purpose of Agricultural Tenancy Act, the appointment was done of the collectors and the deputy collectors and the Mamledar, and it was not, as it is being wrongly informed to us, under the Land Revenue Code of 1968. And I am of the opinion that this power is till today not vesting. The land in Goa does not vest in the central government. And when we are made a state in in this connection I am also telling you that in 1968 the Land Revenue Code came up, and see what our minister says. After liberation of the territory, government had, this is a debate in the house, minister is replying. After the liberation of the territory, government had appointed various functionaries like collector, deputy collector, manager and survey officers. However, so far there is no law under which these officers have to be created. So law is not there and they have done the appointment. In the absence of such law, the existence of these officers becomes somewhat anomalous. The government has therefore increasingly felt the necessity of undertaking comprehensive legislation for the administration of the land revenue and related matters. And for that they are going for this law, which here it says, for the purpose we have decided to take the Land Revenue Code of 1966 of Maharashtra, which is the latest enactment on the subject available in the country, as the basis for framing our law. Now you have to see, when you are having a law like Land Revenue Code, you have to see the basis premise first. What was the type of land existing in Maharashtra? It was the estate of the Union of India. What was the land existing in Goa? Either it was with the Gaunkaris or it was with the Makasodas. It was not vesting in the state. So both were not the same, isn't it? So since both were not the same, how can you borrow that law and implement it here and apply it here and enact it here? Because the land itself is different, and that is the root cause of having the problems now. Because we are different and they were different, their land holding was different, and that is how the problems are created. Now I am of the opinion that the Land Revenue Code is applicable only for the government land. In the other states also it is applicable only for the government land, because in other states it is the government land only, isn't it? And for the purpose of getting you understand this fact, I am quoting the very provisions of this Land Revenue Code of 1968, and just see how these are. Titles of government to the lands. All land, public roads, paths, harbors, creeks, all standing in the flowing water, all right over the same according thereto, which are not the property of any person, are hereby declared to be property of the government. So which is not the property of any person is the property of government. So this is applicable for the section 4 is applicable for the only government property. I come to the 15. Whenever it appears to the government that any public road, lane, path which is the property of the government is not required for the use of public, the government may by notification publishing the office date make declaration to that effect, which is the property of the government. Whenever it appears to the government that public road or path which is the property of the government, so you can change it, which is the property of the government, so it is applicable to the government land. Go for 16. This is of interest to you. Rights for trees and forest, where the forest officer comes if you, immediately if you cut the tree, isn't it? The right to all trees, jungles and other natural products growing on the land set apart for the forest reserve, and all trees, brush, wood, jungle and other natural products wherever growing, except in so far as the same may be the property of any person, shall vest in the government. So if it is a property of any person, it does not vest in the government. So if it is your property and the trees are there, that does not vest in the government. What is happening now? For every, even if you are cutting the tree in your compound, they will come and put a penalty. Okay? 17. Recovery of value of trees. Any person who shall unauthorizedly fell and appropriate the tree or any portion thereof which is the property of the government. So here also it is the property of the government, not for the other property. Recovering the value of natural product. Any person who authorized removes from any land is set apart for the special purpose or from any land which is the property of the government or natural product shall be liable to the government if it is the property of the government. Now coming to the important point of occupancy, grant of land. Classes of holders of the land. Land granted under provisions of this code or any other law shall be held under one of the following classes of the holders as may be occupant class 1, occupant class 2, government residence. We know what is occupant class 2. So, subject who is the occupant? Grant of land. Subject to the rules made on this behalf, the government grants belonging or vesting in the government for agricultural purpose or non-agricultural purpose as may be specified in the grant. So, here the government is getting, the collector is getting the right to grant the land, and the person whom the land is granted is called as a occupant. Now question is, the people in Goa are holding the land before coming into force this code. They are holding before liberation also. How they are the occupant of the government? How the Comunidade is the occupant of the government? Comunidade is 1,000 years old, isn't it? How the government can say the Comunidade is the grantee and Comunidade is the occupant? Because occupant is one who is granted the land by the government. We have granted the land to the government. So actually the Gaunkari should file criminal proceedings or by giving the notice saying how you are declaring the Comunidade to be occupant of the property. So unless a person, even an ordinary person, if he is given a land by the government, then only he can be the occupant. Otherwise no, as per this definition. But what is done? We are all applied the record of rights. Grant of annual land vesting in the government. Where it appears that a collector and any annual land which vests under the any law for the time in force in the government. So if the land vests in the government, here also it is the same now. Occupant's rights are conditional, and occupant is entitled to use an occupation of his land perpetually conditional on the payment of the amount due on account of land revenue. A person who is called as the occupant
You have reached the crucial part. 7:10 was time.
What is the time there? 7:10 already. Yeah, I will cut off. So the point which I want to say is that this law is applicable only to the government land revenue code is applicable only to the government land, and it cannot be applied to the non-governmental lands. So in rest of the India, these are the government lands, and therefore the land revenue codes are there. Here in Goa, what they should have done is, in my opinion, where the Comunidade villages are there the land revenue code should not come into existence, and where the non-Comunidade villages are there perhaps the land revenue code can come into existence. But that is not happening. That is the root cause of the problem and the unrest in Goa, and I don't know whether it will be sorted out or not. Then even as far as the Constitution is concerned, Constitution is supposed to provide us the protection under 295B, Article 372 for the continuance of the law, and as far as the granting of the land is concerned for the occupancy, it should be the agreement on behalf of the Governor of Goa by a collector under Article 299. Government land cannot be simply given without a contract. So that contract is absent here in our cases. And one of the important thing as far as the property which we read as, we say the private property, no? In Indian context, Article 31A and 300A is important. Article 331A gives the list of the properties which can be acquired by the government as far as estate. So every property that is taken up, that should contain an element of estate. And what is element of estate? Is that land should be held for the payment of land revenue. Land should be for under a tenure. It should be for the purpose of agriculture, and all that is there. Even the Jagirdars and Inamdars, all their land is taken up as a estate. And those who are having under the record of rights of that particular area recorded as an occupant, that is a private property. So it is a estate of the person, but holding in the hands of another person. And that person refers it as his private property, and that property can be acquired because of the eminent domain and because it contains an element in state. Always remember that land acquisition can only be done for the land which is granted by the government, because it is a land that is granted, and now the government wants the land for the public work, it is taken back by paying compensation. In Goa, it is like purchase. Government has not granted the land, but it is acquired by the Land Acquisition Act, which cannot be done because Land Acquisition Act is applicable only for the land which is granted by the government by paying him compensation for nurturing the property for so many years of holding. So, as far as our Goa and the Comunidades are concerned, we are not having a property, any property which contains an element of estate. We are not having, we are under the self territories. There is no domain available for the government. And under the Mines and Mineral Regulation Development Act, which is I was asked to make a comment on that, whether the Comunidade land can be taken up for the mining activities. No, it cannot be taken up. Because first of all, the Code of Comunidades is not permitting it, that's the one thing. Second thing is that there is a judgment which is given by the Supreme Court in the case of it's a Kerala case of Tesima Jacob and others and the Department of Mining and Geology of the Kerala. There I am reading only the last para, so and then showing the open for the Mines and Mineral Act is an enactment made by the Parliament to regulate mining activity in this country. The said Act does not in any way purport to declare the proprietary right of the state in the mineral wealth, nor does it contain any provision divesting any owner of the mine of his proprietary rights. So it is very clear. The Supreme Court further said, on the other hand, various enactments made by the Parliament such as coking coal mines, Nationalization Act 1972, and coal bearing areas acquisition of development act 1957 make express declaration under section 4 and 7 respectively, providing for acquisition of the mines and rights in or over the land from which the coal is obtainable. If the understanding of the state of Kerala that in view of the provisions of the Mines and Mineral Development Regulation Act 1957, the proprietary rights in the mines stand transferred to the rest of the state, it would be wholly unnecessary exercise on the part of the Parliament to make the laws for such one mentioned above dealing with the nationalization of mines. So, if the proprietary rights were not vesting with the owner of the land, then why those laws are passed? Everything belongs to the government. So, there it is said that it is not there. It is only Mines and Mineral Regulation Act only regulate the mining. Even with regard to the minerals which are importantly and highly sensitive in the context of national security and also the security of humanity like uranium, the Atomic Energy Act 1962 only provides under section 5 for prohibition or regulation of the mining activity in such mineral. Under section 10 Act it provided that the government of India may provide for compulsory vesting in the central government of exclusive right to work those minerals. The said Act does not in any way declare the proprietary rights of the state. From the above mentioned reason, we are of the opinion that there is nothing in the law which declares that all mineral wealth, subsoil rights vest in the state. On the other hand, the ownership of the subsoil mineral wealth should normally follow the ownership of the land unless the owner of the land is deprived of the same by some valid process.
So Malik, that was not intended, huh? The lights.
No. In the instant appeal, no such deprivation is brought to our notice, and therefore we hold that the appellants are proprietors of minerals obtaining in their land. Appellants, that is, are proprietors of the mineral obtaining in their land. We make it clear that we are not making any declaration regarding their liability to pay royalty to the state, as that issue stands referred to the larger bench. So here it is very made clear that right on the minerals vests in the proprietor. Now this is the case of Indian context where the German rights were there and where the land revenue was also paid to the government. And here is the case of Comunidade in Goa where it is already said in the code that they are not liable to pay any land revenue to the government. So therefore it cannot be in state under any circumstances, and therefore the government does not have any right on the mineral wealth or on the properties which are existing in the Comunidade land. So land revenue code and the Code of Comunidades are the two different things. Where the land revenue code is applicable, the Code of Comunidades is not should not be made applicable. When the Code of Comunidades is applicable, Land Revenue Code should not be made applicable. When these two things are combined together, that is the implications of this Land Revenue Code on the Comunidade, and that is a disaster that is we are facing in Goa. Any questions you can? I will answer according to my knowledge. I am not an expert in the field, but whatever the knowledge that I have shared with you.
You are quite an expert. Okay, let's have questions. All right.
I have taken a lot of time.
No. You are a very big topic to handle. So, please give the mic. One there and then second here. Yeah.
Yeah, good evening. I would like to ask you about the election. Now, elections of Comunidade. They have the ballot system, and many Comunidades have, showing of hands. What is the provision? Can you enforce a ballot box election?
What is not there in the code cannot be done as per the law.
Yeah.
What is there, you can go as per that. But nowadays we find that the elections are being monitored by the collector, isn't it? So he is going in a different way. But as far as the challenge is concerned, what is there in the Code of Comunidade, in my opinion, can be challenged. And other things are not expected. Now the thing is that our own Gaunkars sometimes are demanding that. So when our own Gaunkars are demanding that this should be done, then there is a dispute and he gets a chance to take a decision. Otherwise, it cannot be.
No, any provision for ballot?
I have not come across. Because earlier in the previous time, ancient time, it was selection. There is not even election.
Yes, sir.
Question very short and sweet. If a house built in the 1400s, today, do we have to pay house tax and the revenue code?
House tax and the land revenue code, under land revenue code. See, house tax you are paying to the panchayat. House tax you are paying to the panchayat, isn't it? Now that is another topic. Whether the panchayat can exist in the Comunidade village, because there are local governments. See, this land revenue code has declared villages as the revenue villages. And if you see the law or the given that gazette which I read, last part says that these villages are found in the so many revenue villages. So there he mentions that it's a revenue village, but actually they are not the revenue villages. So if anyone can want to challenge in the Public Interest Relations Act for the Gaunkari that the village panchayats cannot exist in the Comunidade villages, he can be free to do it because they can exist only in the revenue villages. And you are fighting that Comunidade is not a revenue village.
Okay, over there, gentlemen. Yes, after that, you, sir. Wait, let him do and then you.
Could you please clarify about the shares and shareholders? Are they the same as Gaunkars and Gaunkars? Can the shares be sold or transferred?
See, let me frankly admit that I being from the new Congress, I have not much knowledge about the share matters. Okay? Because I only know the theoretical part of it. That it was coming as from the Akos. Okay? And in many villages, there are exclusively meant for the shareholders. They are exclusive shareholders. The reasons are historical. Because the Gaunkars are migrated. Maybe because of the conversion, mass conversion, they have migrated to the other areas and no Gaunkars were left for the village. And therefore, one who have financed that Comunidade were given the charge of that Comunidade as a shareholder. And they are managing the affairs. Exclusively, the shareholders Comunidades can exist. Now, as far as your question is concerned, where there can be free transfer, in my opinion, the law is not very clear on that. But see, as a component of the Comunidade, we should see that these shares do not go to the elements, non-goers or the elements which are going to damage the working of the Comunidade. It should be kept within, because these shareholders are also from the olden times here, isn't it? And one point you have to also note that a Gaunkar can be of only one village, but the shareholder can be of 10 villages. Because Gaunkar is only for one village because he is the sole owner of that particular village. In fact, in my opinion, the right on the land does not go to the shareholder. It only goes to the Gaunkar. But now, when the shareholders are there, he is also getting zoned along with the Gaunkars, isn't it? So that is a point which needs more deliberation, and I am not prepared at the moment for that.
Kalangur has only shareholders.
That's what.
Some people
No, this has happened where there was a mass conversion. The people fled with their families. So there, this type of things are happening. And in this belt, Bhartiya, Gurgaon, Kiswari, that was on major scale. So problem is in this area only.
Yes, sir.
So, difference between Mokaso land and Alvaro land and Afra land.
See, afframento is you are giving land under the provisions of the code, afframento. The normally application is made to the Governor General, and from there it is coming up for the opinion to the Comunidade, and there is a process for that. But even in the village of the Comunidade, there are afframento. But that land doesn't mean that the land belongs to the governor, because it is coming to the last final decision is taken by the Gaunkars and the components there in the Comunidade. As far as the Alvara land is concerned, there was a decree which was there, I think 3602 decree something. As per that decree, the lands were granted and on Alvara basis, and if they fulfill the conditions for 20 years, okay, there were certain terms and conditions written in the Alvara, that's the order, initial order, primary order, that you are allotted this particular land. And you have to fulfill this condition and pay the amount what is due to be paid to the for 20 years. Only after paying 20 years, you get the right of amputatis for that. Amputatis is where you are free to transfer the land. Okay, that right you get after 20 years. But even in that particular case, see, Alvaras were given on two bases. Mainly it was given by the government land, and it was subsequently also applied to the Comunidade land. But ownership of the land, absolute ownership of the land is only based with the Comunidade, not even with that person. He is holding, and when you are transferring that land under amputatis, you should see that the person who is transferring cannot put it to any other use than for what it is given to him, the original person holder. And if you are not completing this 20 years period, then it is gone, it lapses.
Mokaso land.
And Mokaso lands are those lands which are, in fact, the Mokaso holder are the, in my opinion, it's always a debatable and dispute raising question. Mokaso holders are the trustees of the Gaunkars, because the Gaunkars were incompetent to maintain and defend themselves or to protect their properties. This Mokaso holder was given the responsibility by the king to look after this particular village and take from them some tributes. Okay, that is a Mokaso. He is not the sovereign owner of the land. The land of that village rests in the Gaunkars actually, but they are not recognized because they are not Comunidade. Okay, but Mokaso holder, and there are some of the, I am not taking the names, there are some of the Mokasos which were abolished, but subsequently no process was carried out, therefore it remained with them and they remained to be Mokasos.
Sir, you have mentioned about that in some villages that land was given for providing services to temples. So if those services are not continued by
that comes back to Comunidade. And remember that. See, it's a very important thing to remember original Comunidade, that the first thing the Gaunkars came when they came to the village was to establish their deity.
But sir,
The temple-
some services are based on the caste.
I am coming to the point. Establishing the deity and the good lands were reserved for that deity to be auctioned so that it can be self-generating for the maintenance of the temple. And there are certain people, services are required. Let us, for example, priest or the pujari, bird is required, the guru may be required, the gharis may be there, the jalmis may be there. All these people are there. Okay, they are providing the services. But in the Comunidade, when the grant is made, it is specifically made clear that those who are given the grant for the performance of those services shall not give away the services. If they give away the services, the land should be taken from him and given to another person from his family or the other family of the same caste or the who is doing that type of duty. That is what is mentioned there.
But some services are based on the caste, and that caste-based services is against the fundamental right and human right.
That is what I say, no? That is what I said. Fundamentals and the human rights you are saying. We are now in the 21st century. Okay. We say it because we are under the Constitution of India.
Yeah.
But what the point which I was highlighting was that our Comunidade villages are not covered under the Constitution of India. Still,
But Article 13 says when the fundamental rights of any person is violating, that your whatever mentioned in that communal code is null and void.
which one?
Article 13.
So that is what I say. If the Comunidade code has been approved by the government
Yeah.
in 1962, isn't it? I do agree that there should not be breach of fundamental rights. I do agree. And the Article 3 is also clear that the customs and practices which are against the fundamental rights are not to be followed. That is stated there.
Yes, sir.
So now I don't agree on that, but it is agreed that fundamental rights are there intact. But it is under the Indian Constitution, and we are following the Indian Constitution at the moment.
But caste is not protected by Indian Constitution. Rather, it is the aspect from the Hindu religion, and which is not giving the equality to some of the people, sir.
I didn't get your question.
Caste-based services are not as per the Constitution or not liberal.
Right.
Rather, they are giving injustice or practices of injustice and inequality.
You are very correct. See, now the Constitution is brought into force. Drafting process started in 1946.
Yes.
Okay. Finished in 1949.
Yeah.
Came into force on 26 January 1950.
Yes. Absolutely correct.
Okay. Now, this Code of Comunidade was there prevailing in Goa at that time. Goans were not the people who adopted the Constitution at that time. They were not
Yes.
there for the
Yeah.
process of the Constitution.
Yeah.
So that is why I said there should have been structural changes made in the Constitution of India to accommodate these situations, which has not been done. Okay. So I don't agree. It is very correct that in the present situation that fundamental rights should be followed because we are under Indian government now at the moment. Okay. We cannot fight back for that. We are not incapable of doing it right now. We can fight only to the public interest litigation, not otherwise. But it seems to be inhuman also. But there could have been these provisions made, incorporated. Now this should have been done by the central government in the parliament. And we are not there at that time. No. Now when the caste-based norms are followed, it was earlier it was on the depending upon the skills of the people at that time. They were assigned a different job according to the skills. If you look at the earlier one, you will find according to the skills that were first given, not otherwise. So it was done in the past, it is being continued. Now,
No, sir. Skill based is totally wrong.
He has answered, tried to
Yeah,
answer
okay, but
questions.
skill based is wrong because some of the services, though even a person from particular community is considered belonging to that community, his skill, his intellectual is not taken into consideration.
No.
Even today.
What I said, this was done at that time. This was done at that time. See, we are so many 1,000-year-old. Comunidades are so many 1,000-year-old. We are now here in this era. We cannot go with that, but there should be some changes made. There should have been discussion. There should have been changes in the Constitution of India. Now, equally, I can say that when the 80% of the land villages in the Gaunkari villages covered under the Indian state, Goa state, 80% of the MLA should be of the Gaunkari.
Correct.
And Comunidade. Now, what we are going to say in that particular case? It is is done in the Mizoram, it is done in the North. Why it is not done in the Goa? Now we in Goa say that anyone can contest the election for the assembly. There it is not so. So many percentage of people will be from this particular community will get so many MLA. Why it is so? Because it is under special category. Why we are not under special
There is no
category?
recognition for the Comunidade within our system. In fact, Andre, I remember, Andre had taken it to the court and the judges were sort of very dismissive. They said, if you are not going to be under the Indian constitution, who are you going to be under? So he said, well, we are independent. Yeah, I don't think he got
That is the problem.
He argued this one. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. If a strip of land is rented out, there's a tenant, Comunidade land, for rice purposes, cultivation, thin strip, and if it is not used for that purpose, and in that space they built a gardo and blocked the water channel, there is a nala that passes through, what can be done about something like that?
No, we have to follow the process of the law because
Is it
under the
legal?
First of all, Tenancy Act, the land should be used for the agriculture, cannot be put to another use. Even under the land revenue code, which we may not accept, but also says that. Now here, as far as the Comunidade is concerned, also says that if land given for one purpose of the Comunidade cannot be used for the other purpose.
So who do you approach? Do you approach the Comunidade?
If it is a Comunidade land, you can approach the Comunidade land. If it is not a Comunidade land, always a Mamla is there public.
No, it is Comunidade land which has been rented out and the tenant is not using for the purpose. Okay, thank you.
Did you want to ask a question? No, lady. Anybody
No.
else
That
Mr. Malik, here, there's a question.
Sir, in continuation with some points of ours, if there is a land that is being given to the person who goes on record of the Comunidade for a particular purpose, say for example a field,
So for example,
a field, okay, that owner whose name features there expires, can it be inherited? Can his inheritance carry on that? Or does his name have to come back again into the Comunidade as a person of that land?
now see, actually earlier it was the name of the new person should have come up. New person, that is father expired, the name of the son should have been incorporated in the Comunidade. But now after the massive use of the record of rights, the people have stopped going to the Comunidade for that purpose. And if you see the records of the Comunidade now, they are only in the names of the grandfathers. The main reason is that earlier there should be inventory proceedings.
How is that to be challenged?
Now, actually, actually, if you want to that this name should come up in the Comunidade land with the Comunidade, you can make an application to them. Let it go to the administrator. Let us see what they are replying. You make an effort. Let's see what they are, and who is paying the foral for making the foral payment for that?
Sometimes foreign is not being paid. It's paid up already.
No, actually, now for my Comunidade, I am telling you, every year the people are paying a foral payment in the month of January. Okay. So maybe in the name of the grandfather, they is coming with the receipt the previous one and that is being taken off. Okay. Now, if you say that here the foral payment is not made,
No, if it's paid,
If it
it
is-
is being paid by maybe his children in the name of the.
oh yeah, but that should not be dispute. When there is a dispute, they have to all record that, follow the succession proceeding and give it to them. It will go to administration.
Okay, here's a question from this side.
Yeah, I just want to ask, what is the legal recourse for migrants who come and occupy Comunidade land in large numbers on the grounds that they are homeless or they have no place to stay? Because in their state they are not homeless, and they come here they say they are homeless, and all the whatever goes along. What's the legal recourse?
No one can be allowed to encroach on the Comunidade land. That's the first thing. If there is an encroachment on the Comunidade land, as I have told you just now, that attorney issues the notice, goes to the again appeal in the collectors, what deputy collectors now? Because the worst part is that they have administrative powers are given to the collector. Okay, he shall distribute the administrator, administrator, and he is given the power. Collector is to delegate the powers to the subordinate officer. Actually, that should not have been also done.
No, but there was a move in the assembly
Huh.
to regularize this guy.
They cannot do it. In fact, I had to make a public statement there at that time that you cannot regularize the land on the Comunidade land and regularize encroachment on the Comunidade land. Whatever it is, it depends upon the government should take action. Government is not in favorable of the Comunidade. Government is favorable in favor of the migrants for the votes. So it is a responsibility not of the Comunidade. It is a responsibility of the government. Let the government take you. Why you are? You say we are not interacted in the proceeding of the court. Saying that I am a Gaunkari, I am a user of the land. See, there was the earlier provision which is not prohibited. Now the disentanglement of the property is prohibited in 647. You cannot distribute the Comunidade land, Gaunkari land. Earlier it was, supposing now there are 50 Gaunkars and they have distributed the entire village among 50. Where would have been the land left? So it is their land. So their co-ownership, it's a collective ownership of the Gaunkar. So therefore, when you have a right there, if someone is encroaching there, you have a right as a component of the Comunidade to agitate on that and go for the legal course. Because I will say, I protest, I am not allowing it, and go to the proceeding. Let us see what is the government doing. If the government is saying that we are doing it on the basis of amendments, challenge the amendments. Amendments can be challenged in the court of law.
So what is your opinion of 372A then in this case?
372A. 372A of the Code of Comunidades.
Of this regularization, how they have applied.
That is what no one has challenged. No, that is the problem. We are not challenging. In my opinion, I have said several times, and the people are angry with me. My own colleagues earlier and now also. When I say that Goa Legislative Assembly is not having legal competency to amend the law. That is what I say. And they are not accepting it. I have given, when the convention was held here in January at Donapala, I had given written submission then that what you are doing is totally wrong. And the question I have raised, whether the state of Goa is, the constitution of the state of Goa is unconstitutional. It's a big question I have raised. No one is answering. Unless you go to the court, nothing comes out.
Okay, last question.
Mr. Malik, what I wanted to ask you, I had forgotten actually. It's my grandmother, she had share certificates of the cellular Comunidade. What do you do, all the,
the illegalities, our ex-MLA from Saligaon has, there was a big case with the treasurer and attorney where he has taken a lot of Comunidade land of Cerula. So how does a person with share certificates of Cerula Comunidade be allotted land when there is no land? What do you do?
Did you go to the cellular Comunidade office and find out there whatever is there?
There's never anybody there. There's never anybody there. Either he's
There are office bearers, no? There are office bearers. They have to. At least Iskiram will be there. So go and talk to Iskiram. Let us see what is doing.
So, Mr. Malik, what do you think? There is any hope that we can fight back this system where government has taken over the Comunidade? So many years have passed. We have got used to this sort of emasculated sort of Comunidade system which is there, and the government is powering down on us. Is there any way in which this Comunidade system can be restored, or some aspects, or some things? Or does everything go to the court? And the courts are in favor of the constitution and the present, the prevailing government, let's say.
But the constitution does not come over.
See, this is actually my frank opinion is that the way the things are moving now in Goa, we are reduced to minority, we will be losing everything, and I feel whether the words of Salazar are coming true. Dr. Salazar in the National Assembly of Portugal after the liberation, we call liberation or annexation in legal sense, had said that in the Portuguese National Assembly that the Goans are our people and when now they merge into India, acquired the thousands of people will come down to that village, peaceful village, and disturb their setup, and our cultured people there will feel like moving out from there. Now they should get a place to stay, and that's what we should keep open them, the citizen on the doors of the citizen of Portugal and doors of the Portugal. Okay? This is what he said at that time. If you see the extracts of his speech in the National Assembly of Portugal at that time. And that is why we are having the citizenship given there. For 3 generations we can go, and if you want to stay there. So I feel these people are making through his one. We have criticized him so much, and these people are all set to prove him correct. Okay, so I feel I'm a little worried about what is happening. That is why I am coming out in open against everything, and even against my own colleagues sometimes. But I think if at all it can be done by anyone at any level, it can only be done by the components of the Comunidade and nothing else. And Goa can, if at all the Goa can be showed, it can only be showed by the Gaunkari and the Comunidade, and no one else will be able to show the Goa.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we will close.